Hey team, I'm going to show you today how in Onshape you can build a mechanism using a feature called constraints. It's a lot of words, mechanism, constraints, and all that, but it's kind of cool. And I want to show you, just here we go. This is what we're going to be able to do. So just be able to take a couple of elements designed in Onshape, real simple, and make it so that when we turn this around this pin, we're able to move that other pin inside of the slot. So you're going to create a new assembly in this file that I've created and shared with you in Onshape. And we're going to add in all the parts. So we go to Insert. We have all our parts here. We are going to need 3 pins, 2 elements, and the slotted element. So let's put those in. All right, so those are all our parts. We'll go to the front view so things are a little more square, and we'll zoom out. Now what we'd like to do is just kind of organize these things so it's looking a little closer to that example. So I can take this, rotate it around a little bit, move this, rotate it around as well, just like the example. Okay, now I'm not going to actually line everything up yet, and there's a reason for that. Let's move the slot. Let's say maybe right there. And I'm going to move the pins roughly where they need to go, but I'm not actually going to put them into the hole. There's a reason why. Just trust me on that for now. Okay, so the next thing, let's talk about constraints. Constraints are relationships between the parts in Onshape with each other. So we're going to be using 2 kinds of constraints right now. One is a cylinder mate, and another is a pin and slot mate. To do this, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to go to the cylindrical mate. Now, a mate is a relationship between 2 parts. I'm going to choose the sides of this pin, and I'm going to choose the inside of the top of this hole in the element, like that. I'm going to hit the check mark, okay? And you can see now that that pin has moved so that the inside of the hole is in contact with the outside surface of the pin. And we can set this up with other things as well. I'm going to do another cylindrical mate with the pin and the other top hole of this element, like so. Okay. And what I now can do is I can do a similar mate between this same pin and this hole of the second element. Let's do that. So I still have cylindrical mate selected. Sometimes you get these extra mates which you're not actually interested in. You can just double click in one if you want to define it, or just hit the X button to delete it. So I'll hit cylindrical mate. I'll select, again, we can zoom in a bit, the outside surface of this pin, because I want that to have to fit through this right here. Okay, now you can see right now that they're not actually in contact with each other, but if I take this and I move it down, because it is a cylindrical mate, I can actually not only rotate it, but move it. And I can do the same thing with this element here. I can move it down so that now those 2 things are connected. Let's go back to the front view, and I want to show you I can take this element, rotate it around, and they're moving relative to each other. It's not exactly what I want, though, because I want to be able to move one and have it have everything else move in relation to that thing that I move. So I am going to go to this pin. I'm going to do a 2-finger click, and I'm going to choose Fix. So what that means now is that that pin is no longer going to move when I rotate this around. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. But because this is not fixed, I can still take that and rotate it, right, just as before. And so this lets you start to play around with the locations of things while keeping those mates, those relationships between the parts, the same. Let's add in a couple more constraints. I'm going to do a cylindrical mate between this part here and this hole. So we'll hit OK. And now the final mate that I want to do, let's delete that one. Okay, the final mate that I want to do is a different mate, which is the pin and slot. I want to make it so that this pin goes back and forth in this slot of the slotted element. So to do this, I'm going to rotate this around, and I'm going to select, again, the cylindrical side, the side of this pin, and I'm going to zoom around, and I'm going to go to the slot, and I'm going to choose the inside surface right here of this slot, like so. I'm going to hit the check mark. We'll go back to the front view. Okay, we'll get out of that. Okay, and there's another thing that I want to do. I want this to be horizontal, so I'm going to rotate this around so that it is horizontal. And you can see now that everything else is kind of staying where it is. It's keeping that relationship that I set up from the constraints the same. The last thing, if you notice, if I take this and I rotate it around, that slotted element is moving. I don't want that to move. So I'm going to take this, two-finger click, and I'm going to fix it. And so now, when I take this and move it along, you can see that it is moving along that slot. And so all these relationships are holding. Now, if I rotate it a little farther, you can actually see that it's moving out of the slot. So if I want to, I can go back to the starting point. That mate is located over here. I can go to the pin, I can go to limits, and I can say I want that pin to move from 0 to, I think that's a 9 centimeter long slot. So we'll set that up. So now you'll notice as I move this around, when it gets to the maximum distance of 9, maybe it's only 8, it doesn't move any further, and when I try to move it closer to the further past that left end of the mate, it gets stuck. So we've now constructed a mechanism with a couple different parts and a specific mate that makes it so that we're now simulating a series of parts that we could actually build here in the Maker Lab at school. All right, give this a shot. Hope this goes well. Let me know if you have any questions.